Welcome back to Develop Lex. This is Weston here. We had the opportunity on this episode to host a live panel at 325 West Main, the former Festival Marketplace, with Katie Kaufman and David Dean. It was a super fun, sold-out event in which we got to talk through things such as redeveloping the property at 325 West Main. Katie, I would consider to be a visionary, and she was assisted in the interview with David Dean, who is her GC for the project and is just incredibly knowledgeable, all things construction, and taking a property that's been around for a very, very long time as a staple of Lexington and making it something that is back to its original glory. So this event was co-hosted with Downtown Lexington Partnership and was a part of their Downtown Deep Dive series presented by Dean Builds. We hope you enjoy. My name is Weston Lockhart. I'm a co-host of a podcast called Develop Lex. Some of you guys know it, some of you don't. If you don't, go check us out on Instagram, YouTube, however you consume content. This is my counterpart, Ross Boggess.
Yeah, my name is Ross Boggess. Weston is on the brokerage side. I'm on the developer side, so you'll hear some themes through our questions with that. But we're excited to have Katie and David here, who's on the contractor side of this project and on the developer side with Katie. And
yeah, so let's get into it. So we are going to tape this, but we will do a Q&A at the end as well, just so you guys know. So we have a kind of a formatted agenda, but we will have Q&A time as well. So let's get into it.
Should we invite people to sit down?
Yeah, I was going to say, for people that don't want to stand, we have probably 8 seats down here. Don't feel shy. You can go down there whenever you want. You don't have to do it right this second.
Bo, I appreciate you taking the first row.
Awesome. All right, we'll get right into it. So I didn't meet Katie that long ago. It was through a DLP event, which is cool, and it kind of speaks to the nature of the collaboration in DLP. But we talked about the acquisition of the property that we're sitting in right now. And at the time, I figured there was some absolutely crazy story to you buying the property, but I would love for you to get into just how you acquired the property, what the vision was originally, etc. Also, if you guys could introduce yourself, if you could introduce yourself and a little bit of background, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Katie Kaufman, and I am a co-owner of 325 West Main. I'll let David introduce himself, and then I'll give some background.
Thank you. David Dean, president of Dean Builds. We're a general contractor here in Lexington, and we are excited to be part of this project.
Okay, so Weston is asking me about acquisition. He's throwing me under the bus early to let you know that I am a novice in the development landscape. The short story of my acquisition of this building is that it is a building I have loved for a long time. On many visits to Lexington, I always wondered about it. The original architect is a gentleman named Steve Sherman, and I just think he must be world class at his craft because it's a beautiful building, and I think he is from Lexington, and so he has the ability to sort of make something beautiful and unique right here in the center of downtown. I love the nod to the Kentucky barn and the beautiful windows. It sort of brings the outside in. So I've always just loved the building over multiple years of visiting Lexington and wondered about it. And I was walking by about 3 years ago, and there was, well, maybe two years ago, there was a for sale sign on it. And so I called. And the gentleman said, this building is under contract. And I said, if that changes, would you call me back? And you can tell my high-pitched voice. I'm sure he didn't think I was a real buyer. And he did about 3 weeks later, called me back. So then my partner and I purchased the building. So that's sort of the short version of the acquisition of this building. Do you mind if I give a teeny bit more personal?
Please.
So I'm just going to give a little personal context to that story, which is my professional background is I'm a Asia Pacific U.S. defense policy person. I worked in the Pentagon for a long time, and I left the Pentagon to start a venture capital firm with my boss from the Pentagon, and I did that for a little over 10 years. And then I shifted into investing in emerging markets. I was doing that until COVID hit, and I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time with my husband, 3 children, 2 dogs, and a small brownstone on Capitol Hill. And so we had a very, very small place on the far north side of town in the country, and we thought, you know what, let's pack up the minivan and spend a whole week in Lexington until we wait out this COVID thing. So yeah, here we are 5 years later. But really, after we had been in Lexington for a short time, we realized it was the perfect place for our family. We just really loved it here. And it has everything we needed, with one glaring exception, which was a job for myself. I didn't have transferable skills, really, from my background to this market. So the true story is, when I saw that this building was for sale, I thought, maybe I can get a job. And I called my partner. And my partner is a global developer. He has incredible wealth of experience, and he had been a previous investor when I was in venture capital. He was an investor in one of my portfolio companies. So I'd known him for a long time. He and his wife had come to Lexington. I knew they loved it here. So I called him up first. He said, sure, I'll redevelop it with you. Then I called the agent. So thank you for letting me go into that background.
I love it. SVN Stone Commercial Real Estate is a full-service commercial real estate firm located in Lexington, Kentucky. Affiliated with the SVN International Network, SVN has over 200 offices across the globe. The SVN Stone team consists of experienced commercial real estate advisors in the heart of the Bluegrass. SVN helps their clients with commercial property sales, leasing, investments, and property management. Let SVN help you with your commercial real estate needs. Check us out at svnstone.com. That's awesome. I mean, what a first project, right? I think when I heard that, I thought it was incredibly interesting, because it showed that when you wanted something, you went after it, and you also had a vision for it. Obviously, an entire city block you have to have quite a vision for that. What was kind of the original vision when you first saw it?
Okay, so I'm going to lean back on my partner. His name is Jack Matthews. His company is called Matthews, and as I mentioned, he has a wealth of experience, but he also is a person with a depth of wisdom. And when he does everything from hotels to office to apartments to museums. I mean, he just does everything all over the world. So I just figured he would tell me what we were going to do with this building, and then we would do it. But I guess, like, leaning on his wisdom, his question to me was, what does the city need? And he immediately flew to Lexington. We had meetings with people like Mary Quinn at Visit Lex, and we just did a lot of listening. And heard from her, okay, we might need more hotel rooms, we might need more downtown living, we might need a grocery store, better retail. She was very good to tell us all the things that she thought the city needed, and we did a lot of listening sessions like that. And as we discussed what we might do with this building, at every turn, Jack would say to me, and what does the city need again? And is this exactly what the city needs? So that's really our North Star. And just so that you know, we took 2 years to decide what we were going to do with this place, and it was because we looked at all of those options. We looked at turning this into a beautiful boutique hotel. We looked at turning this into condos, and as I mentioned, there are a ton of beautiful windows. They are on 3 sides of this building, which is quite unique. So if we were to condo this, you'd have really long condos, and there's plumbing issues. So I learned a lot along the way, looking at the numbers and looking at the different options. And in the end, we've rested on where we are today, which is Class A office on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and highly curated restaurant and retail on the 1st floor. And just very quickly on those 2 things, on the office, I think there are a lot of people that don't think this is the most perfect time to get into the office market, but we really have a different vision for office. We're creating a space that is certainly not for every professional firm. This is going to be a space where you really need your employees to want to be in the office. We feel like we are competing with the home office, and that we need to make something that is both more comfortable and has more amenities than a typical office space. So that's really the type of office tenant that we're looking to fill. And I'll just say, on the 1st floor, that's really where Jack and my passion is. We are all about community and gathering, and we're excited to create a third space where everyone in Lexington feels welcome and really wants to be.
So we will come back to the third space and the curation at the end. David, we're on your job site right now. You have x-ray vision because you know what the pre-existing conditions are, you know what it's going to be. So walk through what all of these people are looking at right now, but then what you see when you see all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I can take, I grew up in Lexington for, and I can remember when they first built this facility, and I remember being a kid and walking through it, and there used to be a carousel right here. That was really neat. And, back in 23, it was a couple years ago when I met Katie and we talked about this project, all those memories came back. So it's a very, and you brought up Steve Sherman, but it's a very similar building that our office used to be in Chevy Chase, which is right there at the corner of High Street and Euclid. And it's a very similar details, very similar glass. So we had kind of already lived through the deterioration of one of Steve's buildings that, especially with the glass and all the work that needed to be done to just get it back into this century. And so we were excited about it. So, the biggest thing that we're doing right now is getting prepped up for replacing all the glass. We're gonna, the scaffolding starting on Broadway. We made some modifications to a space on this floor over here that's gonna have a tenant in it. And waiting on some steel to show up for that, and doing a lot of measuring, a lot of demo, a lot of layout, a lot of investigation. When you get into these old buildings, most of the stuff's behind the walls, right? So when we get into the HVAC and the electric upgrades, there's a lot of stuff that you have to just prep for because it's all behind the walls. It's not like building a new building where you can kind of plan for everything. So I know Derek and Cassidy and Eva are working real hard with the EOP right now and just finishing the details. We're going to tear this glass out right here and make a patio there. And how do you make that waterproof? Those are kind of the things that we're working on right now, is how do you get that area to be dry once we get finished with it and there's not a glass roof over it anymore. So I think it's going to look great. The rendering here, I hope that it looks very similar to that when we're finished with it. So it's a great corner in Lexington, obviously. I've sat here for the last 3 years and got to see another project EOP was on, which is right catty corner to here, which was the, I still call it Rupp Arena, but beautiful building. It's probably one of my favorite ones that I've seen in downtown Lex, and they do some remarkable work down here as well. And so we're excited about this design, and the new glass is just going to make it pop, and then when the outside will get painted in a whitish color, and so it'll really change the overall look of this block. And I think it'll be an exciting, great opportunity on the first floor with a lot more open space there. As you can see, there's some dining options that are on that first floor that I know that Katie and Peter are working on. And so we're excited about that as well.
Craftsman Contractors is Central Kentucky's one-stop shop for roofing, windows, siding, and gutters. CraftsmanContractors.com/contact us will get you straight to the form you need so their team will get in touch about your project. Or just text Steven at 859-246-0108. When they finish your project of windows, siding, gutters, or roofing, you'll see what they mean when they say we build with integrity.
Yeah. I'm curious, Katie, from your perspective, getting into it as the developer, what have been some of the larger surprises that you guys have run into, at least from what you initially expected?
I will say maybe the biggest surprise for me moving to Lexington and thinking about this town as really, to me, an insider's town. I thought that when I showed up and was part of the downtown landscape, I would be met with a lot of skepticism and zero-sum mentality. And I have had the exact opposite happen to me. For example, there is a group of female entrepreneurs that are downtown, and they pour their hearts into their businesses, and they are truly the soul of Lexington. There's Fatalier and Savigny Silver, and there's a new spot coming called the Melroy. It's going to be incredible. There's Bites of the Bluegrass. These are all women that, without that color, without that beauty, what they have put into this town, it would feel so different. And they have kind of wrapped their arms around me and taught me so much about the retail landscape. And then, of course, there's Alan at DLP, and Jim Frazier, and Laura Boyson, and downtown councilwoman Hannah Legree, and maybe the biggest surprise of all are all the other developers that I really thought would not be interested in getting to know me or be helpful to me. And it's Dudley and Woodford Webb and Chad Needham and these really wonderful people that I just can't say enough about, and how there's really a, rising tide lifts all ships and not a zero-sum mentality. So that's been the best nice surprise. If I was pressed to say maybe a challenging surprise, I think, this city loves our farmland, and I'm one of those people that also just loves the beautiful farmland in Kentucky. Like I mentioned, I live on the north side of town. It's gorgeous. If we really want to protect our farmland, I feel like it's possible that the city could be a little more supportive and proactive for those of us that are putting in, it's really painful work, doing redevelopment and making the city what we think it could be. And I just think we could be a little more creative and supportive on that front. And then I guess another surprise is the love of the carousel. And everybody wants the carousel back, and I feel like I should just say the carousel is not a creditworthy tenant. It's not coming back. But I feel your nostalgia.
Those horses do not pay rent.
So, thinking about other cities, what they have, what are some of the buildings that people might recognize, or when you're thinking about your vision for a tenant mix for the ground floor, what are some places that you've seen that have that 5-star restaurant or that curated haberdashery? What is it that you vision the first floor is going to be?
Okay, so I don't want to bring another city to Lexington. I love Lexington. I think this place is just beautiful, and I know nobody wants a national, nobody wants anything but what we have. And when people are a little bit snooty about Kentucky, you're kind of like, great, we're cool, we don't need you. And I followed really in that camp. So I'm not particularly looking at another place that I think we should emulate here. What I'm really hoping to do is create something that is truly uniquely Lexington and for this place and of this place. So I'll give you an example. So sometimes it's really nice when Peter's not here. Peter Barr is my agent. He's always like, you're not allowed to say anything. So I'll just go ahead and tell you about one concept that we'll have on the first floor that I'm really excited about, and I think it embodies really what we're trying to do for the whole first floor, which is make it a place that is so welcoming, so special, and such an experience that you walk in and you are going to put your phone down and you are not going to pick that phone back up. I have teenagers, so I'm like so anti-phone. So this is what I'm driving to create. And so we're going to have a beautiful restaurant on the first floor. And when I tell you what it is, you're going to have some expectation, and we are going to blow that expectation out of the water. We're going to build a beautiful all-day diner. And the reason we landed on the all-day diner is not only because it is the most welcoming, comforting, nostalgic, all those things. We're going to make it a little bit upscale, and we're also going to make it a place that's multi-generational, which is just a funny anecdote that I always have about Lexington. When I first started coming here with my husband, everywhere we went, it's like, I kept being like, why do you know so many adults? We're always hanging out with adults. And it's just a really multi-generational place, and that's what makes it so rich. I mean, I love that about Lexington. And so this is a diner where I can picture my father-in-law, who played basketball, sitting with his friends, eating pancakes and coffee really early in the morning. I can picture my tenants that are lawyers meeting their clients there for lunch, and then I can picture my super talented UK intern there with her girlfriends all dressed up for a cocktail and a beautiful salad from a local farm. So I think it is a place that can really encompass and welcome everyone, and also just be a destination and something that everyone feels like has always been here.
Develop Lex is also sponsored by Community Trust Bank. Hi there, this is Cam Dacey, Commercial Loan Officer at Community Trust Bank and avid Develop Lex in Middle Tech podcast listener. Community Trust offers a wide variety of home loans, commercial loans, and small business loans to suit your financial needs, as well as mobile banking, internet banking, and bill pay. Their friendly and professional staff would love to assist you at one of their 6 Lexington locations. Community Trust Bank is committed to building communities built on trust. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, subject to credit approval.
That's amazing. Any other? I'm just kidding. Peter would probably be upset that you said that, but that's okay. I love it. You did pick a project that's on Main Street, which is obviously a pretty critical corridor in the city of Lexington. How do you see 325 West Main contributing to kind of the fabric of downtown, and do you feel like there's a decent amount of synergy around you?
Oh my gosh, if you don't know that everything is happening downtown, and I am the luckiest person to be I feel like in the center of it, and I have nothing but luck to attribute to that. Well, I guess all the other people like Councilman Legree, who's putting in the Phoenix Park down here, which doesn't get a lot of airtime, but I think is going to be very transformational for the city. And then obviously Gatton Park is just massive for us, and then the development on High Street behind Rupp Arena, all of these things are just so big. Lexington is definitely having a moment, and it's not just because of Mark Pope. I think we have a lot going on, and I just feel really lucky to be kind of nestled in with it, and I just want to be a partner to everyone that's also making it all work.
Good deal. So, David, I know construction projects never happen on time, but if you were going to put a timeline on this, what would you expect to see in the next 5 years? What does your contract say?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be done this year. How about that answer? No, I mean, we're excited. So everything's kind of on track right now. The one thing that we have been affected by is the weather, obviously. We've gotten spoiled here. I mean, the last 3 years, the weather's been fantastic in the winter, and we've been able to get a lot done in the winter. So we kind of took that for granted. I was even telling Katie, I was thinking about lobbying to make sure the asphalt plants stay open all year around now that, with global warming, that was one positive thing that's coming out of that. But after this year, you're not going to be able to do that. So we have a lot of things that are outside right now. This job's outside. The park that we're doing is outside. We've got a project over at Kingland we're working on that's outside, and it's been a real struggle trying to get the weather. But the team out here has done a lot of work that surprised us that they were able to get done in the weather. So we're optimistic that it will be on schedule. And we're still procuring material as well, so that's a big part of it. Everything doesn't just come off the shelf, so you got to wait for it, and you got to get it through shop drawings, and all the engineering needs to be looked at, and the architecture and colors, and so a lot of the outside work, which the heavy lift on this job is the storefront glass. So just taking it out and putting it back in and coordinating to make sure that we don't leave a lot of openings that the rain and snow can blow into. Katie's got one tenant here who's been a fantastic partner in this thing, because they have kind of had to pay the price, I guess, for January and February a little bit. So that's been our main focus, is to try to keep their space dry as we're going through this.
Can I just say, we owned this, or David and I, what do we meet, 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago? And I said, okay, great, we finally got a contract. And literally the next day it was the biggest ice storm, the biggest snowstorm, the rain. Since we had a contract, it's just been nothing but weather. And David has David's the president of this company, and there's a lot of people working on this building. No one answers my phone call more consistently than this gentleman. I cannot say enough about what that partnership means and the confidence it gives me, and just with everything that's going on, it's very, really nice.
And I do want to give, again, Peter a shout out as well. I know that he's been instrumental in bringing tenants down here. So obviously he's not here, but we do want to give Peter a shout out. Lessons learned along the way, I think would be the next theme. In terms of obviously large scale downtown project, I know that there is a million learnings that you could talk about, but what would be a few, there are people in the crowd maybe today that are inspired to say, I want to be the next downtown building owner and redevelop a building downtown. What advice would you give them, and what kind of lessons have you learned?
That's a really hard question for someone who learns a new lesson every day. I'm so green in this space that I would never offer my advice to anyone, except maybe just to double down on this lesson of the partners that you bring on board and the trust you have in them. The trust I have in my general contractor, in EOP as the architect, and some of our other designers, and the trust that they have conveyed to me and those subcontractors. I mean, all of this can make you really...
Peter's input too, probably, yeah. Good.
Absolutely. I rely on this incredible team, and that's another thing I love about Lexington. It might be a small pond, but it is a very talented pond. And so my number one lesson would be get the right team.
Yeah, because the biggest thing to work downtown is just different, especially when you're looking at a renovation. I mean, something as simple as, this weekend we're taking off the cooling tower off the roof. I mean, there's a lot of steps that you have to go through to get a crane downtown and, shut the roads down, put the barricades up, get all the permits and permission to do that, and then take for an activity that might take 1 hour at the most, there's a lot of planning that goes into that. A lot of different agencies, the roads are not all controlled by the city. The state owns some of these roads too, so you have to coordinate that. Tying into the utilities on Main Street or anywhere is very difficult. There's a lot of upgrades that they'll make you do when you're putting in the new utilities or a new fire vault or putting in grease traps for restaurants. All that stuff has a lot of coordination that takes place that you might not have to go through if you were outside of the urban area. Obviously, where do you store material downtown? That's really tough as well. So, back in the 80s, the Japanese taught us just-in-time delivery, I think. Maybe it was sooner than that. But a lot of that coordination has to take place as well. You don't want a bunch of storefront glass to show up all at the same time, so you have to coordinate that. What else?
I'd like to say that it's remarkable what you all have done with such little impact to Main Street, and because typically you can get a long-term lane closure, and then it makes a drive for a semi a little bit easier, and it's what y'all have been able to do so far has made it a great experience for the walkability of downtown.
We'll just keep replaying that clip.
Yeah. Well, and the big parts is just the planning. Our team out here has been able to really kind of put a plan together for the last 6 months, 7 months on how we're going to come around the building and try to. We really can't shut down a whole lot of the streets. If we wanted to, we would have loved to shut Mill Street down, and we weren't allowed to do that. So,
trying to think, we definitely want to leave some time for Q&A, so we'll start wrapping it up here soon. Any other exciting things that you want to share about the project in its current day? And if not, because I know some of that stuff is confidential, when you look forward in 5 years from today, what would you love for people to say about 325 West Main?
I would love everyone to think of 325 West Main as an essential part of their day. So they're doing their daily experiences, but those experiences are now much more enriched and special. And I would love the diner to be a fixture in this town where if you are coming to Lexington, you're going to go to the diner because that's what you do.